right, how are we doing out there? All right, so my name is Tom Tresser. I call myself a civic educator and a public defender because the very word public is under attack in this country and in this city. Do you agree with me? All right. When I say public, you say public schools. You say public libraries. I say public, you say parks. I say public, you say transportation. Exactly. These are the things that make a city great. These are the things that make a nation great. And my friends, they are under attack here in Chicago. All right, well, the topic for today is Chicago broke? Well, witness this. Chicago is not broke. All right. So first, let me say that a budget is more than just figures on a piece of paper. A budget is a map for your future, especially a civic budget. It's also a scorecard for who's in and who's out. And my friends, in this city, we the people have been out for so long I can't even count. And we're out, and the other guys are making out like bandits. Okay? So let's clarify about what we mean by Chicago's budget. Right here on this paper are all the units of government controlled by the mayor. So we're talking about all the money. The city of Chicago, $9 billion. Public schools, about $6 billion. The Park District, about $500 million. CHA, $1 billion. CTA, about $1.5 billion. City colleges, $696 million. TIF districts, $426 million, and special service areas, about $22 million. All in, we're talking $19.1 billion. Now, as my learned opponent mentioned, we also have to talk about debt and obligations. Debt for things we owe for the past, and obligations for things promised or contracted for the future. And right now, 31% of all the property taxes that we collect are being spent on debt. Now, the first thing I have to say is, can we trust these numbers that they're accurate? And I, for one, do not trust the city's reporting, and I call for an independent forensic audit on all aspects of the city's agencies, commissions, employees, and contracts. And when I say forensic audit, I mean someone from the FBI who can find mob money, right? Because that's what we're talking about here. So until we get that independent forensic audit, all the numbers are suspect. And we will look at official pronouncements with a huge grain of salt. Now, I've been collecting stories on Chicago corruption for years. I have a folder down there that's 6 inches thick, which is full of articles on corruption, right up to a few days ago when the Board of Education was caught fudging reports on school cuts. Experience has taught us not to trust City Hall when it comes to our civic finances. And we have a book here called Chicago is Not Broke, Funding the City We Deserve. And the lead-off chapter is by Dick Simpson, the professor from UIC, who chronicles corruption. He's written a light summer reading book called Corrupt Illinois, Patronage, Cronyism, and Criminality. I highly recommend it. What's the point of this? It's because so much money has gone missing in the city that we really need to step back and find it. So, the Civic Lab has published the book, Chicago is Not Broke, and it's by major experts such as Dick Simpson, who break it down into 3 large buckets. And there's my helpful assistant, Merle, my wife, showing us the 3 buckets. Thank you, Merle. Bucket 1, money that's stolen from us. Money that we should not have had to spend, nor continue to spend. Money that's hidden from us. Hey, we know they're collecting it, we just can't find it. Right? Number 3, money that we are not collecting, but we should be. In bucket number 1, we have the aforementioned cost of corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, the cost of corruption as calculated by Professor Simpson and his colleague Thomas Gradell is $500 million every year. $500 million, the cost of corruption in Chicago, going back as far as you can count. Also, the cost of toxic bank deals for Chicago. So this is where we get into this debt that my esteemed opponent is talking about. we've been placed into a lot of toxic deals that we can't seem to get out of. However, when the mayor and the governor want to void the contracts with the workers and want to take away their pensions, that's a contract we can walk away from. But the contracts with these banks that are sticking us with hundreds of millions of dollars of debt every year are apparently invaluable and cannot be touched. And finally, bucket number 3, money that we're not collecting, but we should be. Now, in bucket number 2, but money that's hidden from us, are the famous TIF districts that I've scoured the city for the last 3 years explaining this giant slush fund controlled by the mayor. All right, right now in Chicago's TIF districts sits $1.3 billion, $1.3 billion of property taxes. Now, if we flush just $1 billion of that, just flush those accounts out, that gives the city a one-time bump of $843 million. We could use that money, couldn't we? Okay, how can we be broke? $183 million is ready there, sitting in accounts right this minute. And if we ended TIFs, blew them up completely, we'll have another $422 million coming to the city each and every year. Now, bucket number 3 is the bucket that's the most challenging for us. It includes revenues that we're not collecting, but we should be. Number 1, a progressive income tax for the state of Illinois. We have the most regressive income tax in the country. Very few states are worse than us. And what that means is the poor people pay relatively more. It's not fair, which means that the richest are getting away without paying their fair share. The second idea is a financial transaction tax on LaSalle Street. Hey, you go into the store and you buy a can of soda, you pay a tax. You buy a loaf of bread, you pay a tax. But these gamblers down on LaSalle Street who flush a quadrillion, that's a quadrillion, that's zeros from here to the end of the street, no tax. Is that right? No, it's not right. And finally, in our bucket number 3, a public bank for Chicago. Let's have a bank that works for us, not screwing us. All right, now we got to get hold of all those 3 buckets. And so our authors have collectively put together these ideas for you, and they have added up to $9.8 billion of waste. $9.8 billion of waste, and we propose for you $5.5 billion in new, sustainable, progressive revenues every year going forward if we enact these ideas. These are revenues that are not wrenched from the least of us. So, get the book here today, special price, $10 for all you buggers. So, we need an independent audit. I've established that, and I think you agree with me. But we need to take a stuffed stand on every contract, loan, and consultant agreement and payout that the city's involved with. We want our menu of revenue ideas implemented before there's 1 more cent in property tax hikes, red camera ripoffs, regressive fees, or any basic services, and other scams cooked up by the mayor. He wants to sell Midway Airport or anything like that. No selling of our public assets or privatizing essential services. Until these things are done, my friends, you cannot say Chicago's broke.